Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this next episode of From There to Here. I'm your host, Lawrence Temple, and we have a guest that I go way back with. I met her when she was just a kid at Atlantic High School once upon a time, and now she's a local professional. I don't want to say much more than that because I like my guests to mainly introduce themselves. So and you'll see what I mean as we go along. And we're going to talk about a wide range of things. So, Miss Daugherty, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Had a pretty full day today. Work, friends, relaxation, amazing food. Think I
That's
did
a
some service work too. So, dream
that's a,
day.
that's a pretty good mix of a day and a life. That's good. Well, the question I told you I'd ask you up front. You step into an elevator, chit chatting, and you have to, do your elevator speech of who you are in a few seconds. What would you say?
I guess I would say I'm a member of the community that finds it really important to help families and kiddos, especially from rough places, find home, find a home base. And it
Hmm.
has turned into a career for me. But I do real estate full time as my full time gig, but when people ask what I do, I enjoy serving. So I've gotten to help 122 families with real estate in my career so far, and
Okay,
looking forward to some more. I've got three pending deals right now and lots of buyers that I'm working with also.
I've got it, and I'm interested in that myself, and this is going to lead us to a lot of good directions. Let me say a statement that I'm sure is pretty much false, and then you correct it. Let's see. You were born into wealth, silver spoon in your mouth, privileged growing up, and pretty much have never had a problem a day in your life. I'm pretty much that sure that's a false statement. Can you correct it, please?
Yeah, not exactly correct. Silver spoon in my mouth in that I was born. I'm very grateful that I was born and that I have the siblings that I have and that I've had the mentors I've had along the way. But I was the second of three children. My mom was a single mom, a really loving person, but not extra mature as a parent. So we had a lot of obstacles kind of because of that. She struggled choosing the right partners. She could have done a lot better in life if she had had some mental health resources offered to her early. That's one of the spots where I get such a passion, like helping families and helping kiddos who are from hard places, just kind of guiding them to what resources are available. And if I don't know, because often I don't, just digging around, like I was asking you for the elementary school, just digging around for, my network to try to help them and get them what they need. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what people need, but in my heart, I feel like if my mom had had some mental health assistance, that she would have done a lot better. And I got thrown into foster care, and that was after moving a whole bunch of times. So
Okay.
think my brother was born 18 months after I was. So I was always wanting my mommy, but she had to take care of him. I was the middle kid, and we had to move a lot. I calculated it a couple years ago. I went to 11 different elementary schools. And that
Wow.
was before I went into foster care.
Now that begs the question because I've talked to a diversity of people on the show and in life. Some people, when they have not the smoothest path like yours, that turns into bitterness in their life. And then there are others who allow it to motivate them into positivity. What what do you think determines the direction the person goes when they start off rough? Is it luck? Is it just how they're made? Why does one person turn it into bitterness and another one into the opposite? What do you think? Or at least in your case.
I was just talking to someone about this today, because he always goes on and on about what an incredible job that I do with life. And I told him, I was like, I really think what helped me was, and a big part that helped me was in high school, I was exposed to volunteering and giving back. And I just think it just changed my perspective. So I'm just making this illustration up on the fly, but it's like you're driving the car, and all of a sudden you can see up higher from up above. I just made that up. So we'll see if it flies, but
No,
you
I
could just
see
see
that.
so much better.
I see that because I can think of the club sponsor for the Interact Club when I was in high school. She was my math teacher, hated math, but loved Miss Barnes. And she pretty much made me at knife point join the club and do volunteering. And I didn't even know I needed that. I'm not even really reflecting on it fully until this moment. So I get that.
Yeah, just changes the perspective. You realize the joy in giving back, and just creates a whole new dimension in your personality and in your life. It's not just about you. So it's easier to overlook some of the negatives that might come your way. It's easier to feel more empowered. And
But,
I still see negatives. I still have whiny days.
oh, yeah. I've never had a perfect guest who never has a bad day, and I'm never going to talk to one. So I get that. Um, well, could you tell? We're gonna want to kind of intertwine your growth as a business person with also your growth in just as a person. Period. So I met you when you were in high school. I think you were a senior. I think the things you do professionally now, selling real estate and having to be out there and present yourself. Would you have seen yourself as that kind of person when you were in the 12th grade?
No, and yes.
What do you mean?
So there was a career explorations class or something over the summer I took in high school. It was probably part of the dropout prevention program. You remember Mrs. Wagner, she was amazing. Mm,
Amazing.
It might have, she was one of my big helps, but it might have been through that. I'm not sure, but it was something over summer. And I did look into being a legal secretary. I just felt like that would be the cool thing to do. I shadowed Brian Tong. Not sure if I'm saying his name correctly, but he's an attorney. Not sure if I'm pronouncing the last name right. And I always did see myself in the professional serving realm. I've always had a great attention to detail. To
Okay.
my little brother's dismay, I would tear him apart. You're not doing that right. I've
Okay.
apologized many times since then.
Oh, okay.
But so slightly, but obviously I'm not in that realm. I'm in a different realm. But um graduated from high school. While I was in high school, I was in the medical field, working as a file clerk. I was at that office about 5 years and working another part-time job or two at the
Hmm.
same time.
Hmm.
Graduated with honors, a little
Okay.
bit early, and ended up, they didn't need anyone at that office. I think I grew out of the office, but I'm not a changer. So he was like, "Hey, my friend's hiring," and so I got a little bit of a new position at another office. Got to try something new. And it was in senior healthcare. And that was another spot where I was reminded how much service is helpful for us for quality of life.
Okay. I
And I'm
see that.
probably getting off track a little. So maybe we can revisit service for quality of life. But
Yeah. Yeah, we will.
I think 2 years into that job, I felt like I needed a change. And I got hired on with the folks I'm working with right now, still currently. Um, I was working as an admin with them, Bill Navarra and Buzzy Porter. That was in 2005 now, and
Okay.
I just enjoyed that admin realm and wasn't brave enough to go commission only because it's terrifying, and I saw, like, the hardships that these realtors went through, the drama that they had to contend with, because when you're dealing with someone's home, there are a lot of emotions that can come in, and most folks aren't equipped or, um, capable of handling those emotions,
Okay.
so it ends up making them act ugly to you, and so I was
Okay.
like, "Ugh, don't know if I want to do that." My daughter grew up, and I had custody of my brother's kids, and I had gotten my real estate license. I was still too scared to go full time. So I was doing consulting work at an engineering firm, but
Okay.
still had my license with the same two guys.
I see. When did you and how did you and why did you go to the point of going full out as a realtor?
Well, I had these two kiddos living with me, and I was doing real estate on my lunch breaks, before work, sometimes in the bathroom, late throughout the night while working full time. And I really wanted to give them do their homework with them, help them be more present with them. And I was like, I'm just going to jump because I need this flexibility. And I
Okay.
asked the company I was with if I could go part time. And they were like, we really need you full time. I'm sorry. And I was like, I jumped.
Wow.
Scary. It was scary.
How long did it take you to decide, okay, I'm going to jump?
Maybe, well, honestly, since 2005 was a long time to even think of going into real estate alone because just
Okay.
commission only terrified me. So it was a lot of thinking. And then maybe about a month of having the kids. And I was just like, these kids deserve more of my attention. I want to be able to put more time to my family. And I had customers wanting more of my time, wanting to send me their families. You took such
Hmm.
good care of me. My grandma is looking to downsize her home. You took such good care of me. Please get my son out of my house now because he's 29 and it's time. And I'm good at that. I can cheerlead people who don't believe they've got what it takes to get a home because it's intimidating.
Oh yeah, I remember. I remember that.
Yeah. But that's I think one of my strong points is helping people who don't fairly feel like they have hope. And I've had some lenders kick me to the side because they're like, these guys are hopeless. I'm like, no, no. And even if it's 3 years later, 2 years later, I've had one I just closed 5.5 years after we first made contact
Wow. Okay.
because they needed to work on their credit, then they wanted to work on their careers, and this happened. They accidentally bought a car. They didn't know they weren't supposed to. I now have really careful process to be sure my customers know what not to do when buying a house now.
Okay. Yeah, I have a story about that. I'll tell you later on about mistakes that we made. Um, well, now how does this, or maybe it's a separate story, how does this connect with the charitable things and that you do, or is it kind of wrapped up together?
Some of them connect, but I think it all kind of boils down to just helping people have a solid home base. Whether I'm helping Family Renew Community, they offer a hand up, not a handout, I think is one of their mottos, because
Yes.
they're helping families with children get off the streets and they're giving the tools to succeed. Some of these people haven't budgeted before.
Okay.
Some of these people can't get an ID, different obstacles that they're coming across. So, from that organization to, supporting and mentoring youth, which I haven't personally mentored a lot of kiddos. It's more of a group effort with the organization that I work with the most, which Every Kid Swims. Y'all might have known them as, um, holy moly, I'm not thinking of it right now.
Hmm.
They did Surf with a Cop. Apparently, I'm nervous. Anyways, Every Kid Swims. They
Hmm.
work to empower kids in the foster care system with
Okay.
swim skills and water therapy.
Wow. Okay. So you're pretty busy.
I I'm not as busy as it sounds, but I do
Okay.
work with other organizations that to me all just boil down to having a safe home base, whether it's mentally or in an actual home.
Okay.
Um, it's important because I lacked it, and I still have moments where I feel like I'm having issues with my homeowner's insurance right now, and it's getting me to my core
I
of
see.
home insecurity, maybe.
Okay. All right. You're diagnosing yourself pretty well. I see that.
So I know where the fear comes in, so I'm able to like invest in these folks, whether it's in the community or in my workplace, who need it. They've got to want to do it.
Okay.
I've had to learn to weed out the ones that don't want it enough and aren't willing to work for it. But the ones that are willing to work for it, I've got procedures all set up to empower them to move forward towards those goals of having a home. People who
Hmm.
have steady home for their kids. It's been proven that if you own your home, your kids are more likely to graduate high school, more likely to have a higher GPA.
Okay.
And and we can talk around, oh, maybe that's because they have more money, which came first. However, the stats are there. So if I can empower these people that are paying just as much, if not more, in rent, to
Mm-hmm.
actually get a stable home where their rent can't be increased $200 every 6 months. I don't know the laws.
Yeah.
Um, then it
Yeah.
gives that home base again.
I see that. No, no. And from my teaching experience, I've seen the same thing. I've seen a lot more stability with kids that you can see in school and when they're homeowner, when the family is homeowner versus when they're renting. Of course, that's not all the time, but yeah, I on my teaching end, I see what you're talking about. Um, Speaking of kids, there's an imaginary question I ask a lot of guests, so I'll ask you. Let's say you have a friend, and they admire things that you're doing professionally and personally and stuff, and they have a child, son or daughter, who's about to graduate high school. Nice enough kid, but they're not sure about what they want to do with their life, so to speak. And the friend says, "Hey, will you take my son and daughter out to dinner? Just talk with them. I feel like you're such a stable person. You could maybe help them find their way." So you go and you have this dinner with Johnny or with Billy or Sally. What do you imagine the conversation would be like in that situation?
I would probably hone in on what their favorite things are these days, what subjects they kind of excelled at or had fun with in school. And I would probably invite them if they didn't know, where they wanted to go or what they wanted to be when they grew up. Obviously, to always keep your nose clean because that keeps your opportunities open. Stay out of trouble. Stay away from bad choices and bad crowds. You can go to church, and when you're at church, talk to kids that are in trouble. But I'd be nervous to hang out with them when you're at such an
Hmm,
influenceable age.
that's a great point.
And you can love them, you can send them love with your heart, but you just have to watch how much time you invest in kids that look like they're going on a path you don't want to go on.
Okay, that's big.
I think it's really important. And it's funny, I think my bonus daughter kind of helped to remind me of that the other day, because she was saying something similar to that. Everybody's private at that age, but so I won't go into it much. But she was saying something along those lines too, and it kind of reminded me of it. Um, And also, if you're really lost as to what to do for work, there are so many ways to delve into what you like. Just start college and start taking some exploratory courses. I know there are some, um, you probably know them better than I do, like workforce and different organizations around town where
Hmm.
they can sample out different jobs and take, what's those assessments, like a
I know what you mean, like about like what your tendencies
aptitude,
are. Right.
like an
Uh,
aptitude test.
yeah. Uh huh.
I'm a big believer in that and temp jobs. If you don't love where you're at, check in with a temp agency, see what kind of opportunities they have because it's a great way to sample different careers. I'm grateful for the careers that I
Hmm.
got to sample.
That's good. I don't think I've had a guest talk about the value of that. Because I know a lot of young people often think they need to pick one thing and do that, forever, and they have to know their whole life plan at 18. And it's good to hear someone say you don't have to know it all. You can sample, look, and try.
Oh yeah. Before you get $100 in debt racked up. Did I say $100,000 in
Right.
student loans racked up and you're like, I wasn't really sure I wanted to do that. It's just what my parents wanted me to do.
Hmm.
A lot of people are in that position. It's really tough. So get some work experience, kid.
That's good. Uh, uh, I have one of my previous interviewees, who's a friend of mine from high school, and her growing up wasn't the same as what you described, but she did describe going to college where most of her classmates came from wealth because it was a private college or whatever, and she didn't. And she talked about it wasn't called that in those days, but we'd call it something like imposter syndrome or something now, where you're in circles of people who had more wealth, etc., in their growing up. Did you, in your circles, as you rose up and became more successful, did you ever have any of those kind of moments, kind of the, what am I doing here? Because other people got there first type thing. And if you did, how did you deal with it?
Only time I can think of is more of a general feeling, and it's confession time, it's been lately.
Talk to
It
me.
has been. It has been. Um, this is me being pretty vulnerable. I am really psyched and stoked to help new agents join in to the company. Um, I've brought several in, I've cheerleaded many along. But when they start getting big numbers,
Yeah.
where they're like making big sales, sometimes I just feel like shy of them. And like I've had business owners. I have a lot of friends that are business owners. I'll tell you when that business is a baby. I'm nervous because it's gonna be out in public now, but when the business is a baby, I'm cheering you on. I have
Mm.
sidelines at every event, everything.
Yeah.
Once it gets big, I just feel shy and nervous.
Honest.
And I'll be at every event. I'll share everything. I'll comment on all your things. And I just love helping in the community, people who are working on their dreams. But I struggle sometimes to continue connecting with them when they get so big. I gotta work on
Wow. I love these transparent moments in these interviews.
it.
If you would put on your psychiatrist hat now or whatever, put your own self on the couch, why do you think that what you just described? Any thoughts of why that is?
I learned so I'm studying like 5 books right now. I'm in 3 different classes, not for academic, more for mental health, recovery, dependency, things like that. Not knock on wood, not that I've had a dependency issue, but because of like family dynamic stuff is what I'm trying to learn and kind of heal
Mm-hmm.
from. Might be the best way to say it. And I did learn what it was, but I can't remember what it is right now. But maybe like a worthy thing, that's the flavor I'm feeling,
Mm-hmm.
is like I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel worthy.
I mean, this has come up with some of my other guests who have done great things, but came from difficult circumstances. And almost to a person, they've talked about something like this.
Mm.
And this is good that whoever's listening to this hears this. So if and when they feel it, they don't feel like an alien, like they're the only one, because I think that's a big part to know that somebody
Mhm.
else is feeling XYZ.
Yes, yes. And I'm glad you reminded me about it because I'm positive in one of my classes that I learned what it was. So probably learning how to heal it is there too. But when you're not ready to hear it, you don't keep it, is my best thought.
I see that. Okay.
I've had a lot of experiences like that where I'm like, oh my gosh, I heard about that like 20 years ago, but it just never sunk in. Like forgiveness, I've been digging into that lately.
Oh yeah, as from my church background, yeah, we talk about that all the time. Got to forgive them so you can go free. It's not about them feeling sorry or not. It's so you can be free, even though they're the one that did the thing or the things. Yeah, yeah.
It feels good.
And this is good for people to hear that there, if I'm saying it right, there are these different parts of us that grow. Like you grow financially or business wise, have success and all that, but you still have other parts of your life and heart and mind or whatever, and they need to grow too. And sometimes they don't all grow at the same rate.
Mm, interesting.
Yeah. Wait, would you? Oh, hold on one second. Are you still there?
I am.
Oh, okay, my screen did something funny, so hold on one second. There you go. 1 second. There you go. Okay, you're back. And I'll edit what I need to edit. This is perfect because I have about 10 more minutes of recording time, and I know you have to get somewhere. You stop me when you need to. Um, can you talk to me about how, as much as you want to now, how does how do the experiences you've had in your life, how does that affect how you deal with the young people you mentor, being your own child or younger people that you work with? How do you think your experiences stamp how you interact with the people that you work with? You've touched on it some earlier, but maybe you could say a little more.
I don't know. I know recently I had an experience with a kiddo that's close to me, and they were supposed to be being disciplined. And it was tough for me to see the discipline part. I just saw the big emotion part. Again, this is me probably being too vulnerable, but the shame that kiddo was feeling,
Mm.
oh, I was like, oh, I've been there. I get that. And I couldn't get above the trees maybe. The other adult kind of stayed helped to keep us out of the emotions of it. But um a few days later I was like, oh shoot, that was my I know the kiddo was feeling big things, but I let myself feel little big things too. And I didn't get
Oh,
loud or verbose or emotional, but I was like empathizing a little too much in that instance.
I see that. Mm.
I
And
guess
it's
I want
rough.
kids to be heard when they feel big feelings, maybe because of the way I was brought up. Maybe I didn't share or be heard when I had big feelings. That's all I can think of that would impact them.
Well, all right. That takes me to a kind of a two-part question, maybe because you have a heart to help people and young people. I'm going to go both ways. One, can you tell me what you wish adults would do more in their relations to kids? Well, yeah, what you wished adults would do more, or maybe what adults knew to help kids? That's my first question.
One is something I wish I had done better when I was parenting. So before I preach it, I'm going to confess
Okay.
that I could have been better at this. A, being more present, and B, cheerleading them more and helping them know it's okay to make mistakes. Um, I was hard on my daughter. I wasn't like a drill sergeant by any means, but I
Mhm.
could have highlighted her wins a little bit better than I did and made her feel more valued. She's hard on herself now, and I know it's because of my critical criticisms when I was raising her. In one of my classes, I'm learning it's the inner critical parent was coming out on her, and
Okay.
I use it on me, and now she's got one.
Okay. All right. I hear. Boy, I didn't know that this is going to be a confessional booth, but this is going to help somebody. It
You're
is.
welcome. Sorry.
No,
Thank you.
no, sorry. Now I want to take that and flip it the other way. If you could talk to the teenagers or the kid, what do the kids need to do more in order to help their parents understand them? What could the kids do more? I know it's a tall task, but I think you know what I'm saying.
hmm I've never thought about that before. It's an excellent question.
Oh.
Trust was my first gut instinct that came up. So maybe I'll roll with that. I've been trying to do better at that.
Mhm.
Maybe trust that they have your best interest at heart. Trust that although they're imperfect, sometimes they're not as humble as they should be. They won't admit when they're wrong.
No, I'm a parent, so that's hard to do.
Still trust that their heart is there for you. They live and breathe for you every day.
That's big. Um, and I know I said the last one. Two last ones. I'll go quick.
You're good.
I want to word it right. How do you or a person who had difficulties in the past, whatever those difficulties are, how do they not allow that to be their reason not to excel? How do they keep that from being their built in excuse? Because obviously you haven't done that, even though you're still working on yourself, but you haven't let past difficulties stop you. So how do they not let past difficulties cripple them going forward? That's my first question.
I think part of it goes back to service still because it kind of gives you a reason to go forward.
Hmm.
Um, Service and just finding gratitude. I try to ground myself in gratitude for what I've been blessed with because there are times when I can say, oh, I don't have a mommy and a daddy and an inheritance and grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
I could be sad about that. Really, really sad. But what I do have is a mom that treats me with grace and love and respect, and who says I'm the best parent she ever knew, you know?
Okay.
And that's quite a blessing, a million other blessings in addition to that. But grounding yourself in gratitude, I think, would be very helpful.
And in my teaching life, I've got a chance to work at a diversity of schools, income levels, and things. And I will say that the kid who has the mommy and the daddy and the trust fund and stuff, they don't all escape either. In other words, they have those outward things, but there's still a whole lot of things a person can lack, even though they've got those outward things. And that's something that I learned in my
It's just
travels.
little in my forgiveness
Good.
studies. There's a book called Forgiveness, the Greatest Healer of All. I just finished
Hmm.
it, and it's an author who's pretty popular. He has another really good book too. Um, he tells a story in there that I just thought was beautiful, and hopefully it doesn't make me cry like it did the last two times I told about it. But um, the book itself is a small, easy read, so we've got that going for us. But there was a story in there where him and his wife were in Africa, I think it was, and they were visiting a village, and they learned that what they did in this village was when someone did something wrong, they would bring that person to the center of the town or center of the village. And I don't know if it was all day, half a day, a few hours, but everyone in the village would come and tell that person what they had done right in life.
Hmm.
So that one time you helped me carry the water in, that one time you saved my donkey's life, that one time. And I just saw the beauty in
That
that.
and when I was a teacher, it was always good that the kid who always got in trouble, it's good that they had at least one adult who didn't really know a lot about what they got in trouble about and always kind of treated them based on their best self and not based on all the other things. And they kind of purposely didn't want to know. And that was a very good thing. Um,
Mm-hmm. So good. Because even if they make a mistake, that's not who defines them. That's not what defines them. It doesn't have to be. I think that's what the village was
Daugherty,
getting at.
what would be your advice, I guess, to a person considering real estate? Like how to do it, where to go to school. Is it even for maybe a certain type of personality that it fits? Um, Talk to us a little bit about your real estate world, if you don't mind.
Sure, glad to help. I've kind of helped a lot of people join the business and seen a lot of people come and go. So I've got a lot of words. I'll try to keep it short and sweet.
Okay.
I feel like if you're the type who wakes up in the morning excited to help others or thinking about helping others, then it could be for you. I think that's one quality that's important because you're spending your days, chasing other people's goals, helping them with their deadlines, helping them figure out their priorities. And there are a lot of rewards in the job, seeing people happily in a home and a paycheck. Those are fabulous. And it can be a lot,
Yeah.
I think I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of like, emotional moments and stressful moments, and there's still a big people factor. You've got to be able to cooperate with other realtors, the buyers or sellers on the other side of your deal, title company, your broker. There's surveyors. Sometimes you have to be in communication with if the home needs a survey,
Okay.
inspectors, appraisers, and then a lot of data that you've got to be able to manage as far as finding comps and helping to be sure that people are getting into a home that fits them financially. I team up with a couple of really good lenders, and that helps a lot. So teamwork, I'd say, would be another quality. You've got to be good at teamwork.
Okay.
Schools. So there are a few options for someone who wants to start into real estate. You can take an online course for the pre-licensing aspect. I would suggest taking the pre-licensing course and an exam course because the exam has a lot of items in it that aren't on the pre-licensing course. The
I see.
exam's really, really hard. I know brokers and realtors in the area that had to take the exam 5, 6 times.
Okay.
I even know one person, I think they got into the double digits and they were smart and they had actually experience in the business. So it is a hard test. Um, And then another quality I think would have to be like optimism and perseverance. I have, clients that I've worked with for years before they close. Something comes up,
Yeah.
they're either going through a rough patch in their relationship and they need to take a pause. They don't think they're going to search anymore. Something happens in the family where someone gets sick or someone passes away and they're like, nope, we got to hold on. And you just showed them
I see.
houses 4 days straight, all up and down the
Okay.
East Coast. And you've got to be able to be a good sport about it and understand, have a heart for understanding that, things change and have the optimism that it's going to work out when it's time and not just give up.
Wow, it's good. Again, you're talking about a lot of the people part and the soft part, even more than you are, the X's and O's and the numbers and all of that kind of stuff. That people connection seems to be a theme that keeps coming through what you've been saying.
Yeah, I would say people is a big part of it. I know some realtors who can, recite statistics and recite homes for sale like this. And I wouldn't recommend all of them. It is the people part is important. It's great to know the statistics, but anybody can get them pulled up and show you a sheet of paper.
Okay.
I think the people part's really important. You've got to be ready to make good choices and do what's best for the client at all times. And that's what's going to propel you in your business and help you be successful. If you're just out for the dollar, it's not going to work out in the end.
I see.
Our reputation, it's a very reputation based business. And if we're
Okay.
not putting our clients first, what are we?
Okay. How long have you been in real estate, either part time, full time, or anytime?
I started in real estate in 2005 and I was just in a secretary at that time. Within 3 years, I went with two of the team members and opened our own office. It was during the recession.
Yeah.
Everybody thought they were crazy,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. See.
but it really worked out because the management team that I was under was wonderful and amazing. They really, really were. And they just weren't quite a fit. So the timing was just divine. And I went with these guys and helped them open up the office, built all the forms that we use for, gosh, in real estate, there's a ton of forms. For one transaction, pretty much plan on 20 forms that you're going to have to fill out, I'd say.
Okay.
So I helped to build a lot of the in-office forms. Obviously, a lot of them are statewide and made by lawyers and things like that. But 2008 was when that office opened. It took me several years to get my guts about me and get my real estate license. I'm not going to quote how many years I've been in. I think it's 8.
Okay.
And being like a realtor depending on commission only. And then I got my broker's license several years ago. Now I finished my graduate realtor institute designation, which is, to me, it's very similar to the broker's license in
Mm-hmm.
that we look at all different aspects of the business and study the heck out of them and test the heck out of them. We have to take these tests after every unit. Um,
Okay. I wasn't aware of that step. I knew about being a realtor and a broker, but the levels you're talking about now, I didn't know of that.
yeah, yeah. So I guess depending on what you think of, I started in 2005 in the industry, and then
Okay.
I got my license later.
Well, then my question that goes with that is, how are you different as a, we could say as a person or as a broker or business person? How are you different at this stage of your career than you were earlier on? Say at the beginning of your 8 year run as a realtor, are you different in any way in how you see things, how you function, how you work, how you are, all of the above?
That's a great question. Something's on the tip of my mind that I just thought of the other day that I used to do that I don't do anymore. I don't know if
Yeah.
I can. You got you got the good questions that we have to think on.
Good. That's the goal.
I'm not sure. I know I'm a little better about, weeding out people that aren't really serious about property search and I'm better at putting some responsibility on them to make them accountable too, so that they're
Okay.
holding pride in it and they take it more seriously.
Okay. I see that.
Obviously, having more knowledge, I'm better equipped to help, much better equipped to help than I was at the beginning. I always cared, but there were a lot of things that I didn't know the answers to.
I see. Okay. And again, so it seems like the network you build is a very important part of any business, but particularly real estate. Would you agree?
I would agree. And that was kind of in my mind tickling that I do have a little bit of a bigger network now. I said being in the industry so long before I got my license, I knew a lot of people already, but it is great to have a good network because you want inspectors that you could trust. Like to me, I only use inspectors that I would use for my kids and my family. I want it to be a thorough inspection. I want to be sure that if there's a problem that they're aware of it. And I don't say, oh my gosh, there's this problem, don't buy the house. That's not what I'm trying to do, but I want your eyes open when you buy the house
Okay.
to what's going on
Absolutely.
with it.
Yeah, because I know horror stories when that wasn't done properly. So I get that.
Yes, and lending too. If you're working with a mortgage person, it's really important that they're answering your calls consistently, that the approval that they give you at the start is actually true and accurate. Um, I've had some clients come to me because they clicked an ad on the internet and they're like, I'm approved, let's find a house. And that was something that happened at the beginning of my career.
Mm-hmm.
Someone really close to me had an approval from, online. And I was like, okay, let's go. I'm ready to help you. Found a place, got under contract, did the inspection, only to find out that the company they used didn't fully process the paperwork and wouldn't listen to me that was an HOA fee, like a $344 HOA fee each month.
Mm-hmm.
And I had repeatedly told him, I emailed him, I texted the lender, and I told the lender by voice, just want to make sure you see this because it's a lot of money, to be sure that the kids still qualified, and they
Yeah.
didn't. We found out, I feel like it was a week or two before closing.
Man.
It stinks. Yeah. So you really want to be sure you're getting a lender that has a great reputation locally. Not only will that help the seller see that you're a good candidate, but it also will ensure that you actually get to closing because they're incentivized to take care of you because they have a local reputation, not $1 billion advertising budget. Does that make
Wow.
sense?
That's a that's a great quote. Yes. I do. That's you need to hang on to that or copyright that one. The way you said that, that's good. I get that.
Thank
Um,
you.
now I hear often just business in general. Sometimes there are challenges in being a woman in business. Um, in some of the circles you travel in would be male dominated. At least that's true in some businesses. What about in your experience or in your world?
So in real estate, I haven't looked at the stats lately, but before it was primarily women, you know, maybe 70%, something like that. I haven't looked at the stats lately.
Really?
Um,
Okay.
mhm, yeah. And then as far as lenders that I see, I don't know. I feel like it's probably a decent mix. And then inspectors that you have to deal with, I've only dealt with male inspectors. And to me, that's kind of a cool business to get into also.
Hmm.
But again, just like real estate, it's volatile. If there aren't a lot of people writing contracts, then you don't have business. But there are tons of ways to supplement it. My inspectors that I know do such a great job. They stay really busy, but I would say that would be an interesting career move for someone too, especially if you're handy, because you could do home inspections and then on the side, obviously you'd have to be careful how you navigate it so you're not telling, Mr. and Mrs. Smith that this is broken and then going to fix it later. You'd
Yeah.
navigate it in a way that's like ethical comes to mind, but that's not quite the right word, but just in a way that doesn't create a conflict.
Yeah.
But holy moly, there are so many people looking for handyman services lately, home
Hmm.
repair services, even electricians. I know you didn't ask me this, but I know a lot of industries that are super in demand.
Yes.
Electricians are so understaffed, surveyors are so understaffed. Air conditioning teams, I'm hearing, are having staffing issues, and they're just so in demand. So trades like that, I would say, would be a fun one for kids to explore and look into. I know even lawn services, the lawn people that I know are just up to their ears. And some of the people I
Oh,
know who are most successful in our area started out with a lawn service
okay.
and, just kind of built up from there.
Yes, Mr. Porter. I remember
Yep.
when I left to go over to college or whatever. Um, I don't know if he had a business, but I remember coming back in the early '90s, and I knew him as having a big lawn service and stuff. And then all of the real estate and all the things that are going from there. So I remember watching that from a distance, kind of firsthand.
Yep. He's one of them. And I'd say tree services. There are a lot of trades that really, really need workers. I should have jotted down a list of them, but at those career source places and job placement businesses, you can talk to them about the projections for careers and learn where there's a big need, where it's a little bit saturated right now. And I love that for kids because then your eyes are, open to all the opportunities and you don't have to feel um, wedged into just, one career. You can see the broad scope of what is available and maybe play around with it. Hey, can I shadow you, Mr. Lawn Guy, for
Mhm.
2 days? You're gonna be exhausted,
Yeah.
but you get to be
Yeah.
outside all day. You don't have to be behind a desk. You have a lot less people to deal with face to face. You can just mow and collect the money, mow and collect the money.
Yeah. And I do try to bring that up to my career students to think not just about the money, but what kind of thing do you like? Are you an inside person? Are you an outside person? Do you want to work with your hands? Those kind of questions that can help lead them, to a fulfilling career. And I thank you for those ideas and connections. Because I'm a very big believer in the trades, which is part of the idea of the podcast, to show people there are all these different ways to do things, not just one. Um,
Mhm.
what I want to give you a chance is there anything we haven't talked about or highlighted that you would like to share? Because you're a wealth of information, both professionally and otherwise. Is there anything you want to highlight or share that I haven't gotten to?
Well, thank you. Let's see. In the kids realm and careers realm, Um, I just remembered plumbers. I didn't mention plumbers, but in my industry, that's part of the network is electricians, plumbers, inspectors, lawn people, because you might have a closing tomorrow and realize the dang lawn people didn't show up. So you have to hurry up and call around and find someone who can mow the lawn and make sure the house is presentable
I
for the
see.
closing.
Okay.
And the lawn doesn't have to be perfectly freshly cut. It's not in the contract, but if the weeds are hitting your knees, it's not a good look, and the buyer could, raise a fuss before closing. And we
Okay.
and we want goodwill.
Okay.
So we try to present, that's one of the responsibilities of the seller is to present the house as it was when they first walked through it. A lot of people don't realize that, but that's a
Okay.
really important part. And so
I-
buyers need to do that walkthrough. And that's one of the steps I push my buyers towards a lot of buyers I've talked to were like, we didn't do that with my last deal. And I'm like, oh, you've got to walk through, test the appliances, run the water everywhere, be sure there's no new leak strips, no
Mm-hmm.
new holes in the walls. Not that we would set the deal on fire because of it, but again, it's so that your eyes are open. And if it's something you're uncomfortable with, we can bring it to the sellers. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is a new problem. Um, want you and your agent to come up with a way to resolve this before we close. And then there are ways, um, if it can't be resolved, there are ways to set aside money with the title company and things like that. If it was a big enough concern to make a big deal of, I've had customers see a change and they're like, you know what? It's not a big deal.
I
I
see.
know that these sellers were going through this and going through that, and it's just some weeds in the yard. I'll get my guy over tomorrow, if the grass is really, really high, or wow, it's dirtier than I expected because the contract requires it be broom swept clean.
Okay.
And I've cleaned out many homes when my sellers were having personal things going on or somehow dropped the ball, or cleaner no showed, and then the next cleaner got sick and no showed. Um, as a realtor, you do have to kind of wear a couple of hats. I have a cleaning kit I keep in my garage just ready to go because you just never know. And cleaners are very in demand right now, and having a network of them is really helpful too. And I do, but sometimes it's just tough to get them at the last minute. You
I
need to be
see.
able to give them notice. So
Okay.
being a realtor does take being very dynamic and humble, because I clean some toilets.
Okay.
Although that's not a requirement, if something stands out, you just make it happen so that you can keep the transaction flowing smoothly and get everybody to their goal.
Okay. Gotcha. I know a couple of cleaners too if you need other connections, so I can pass it on to
Oh,
you. Yeah,
awesome. Yes.
at least two. So got it.
Awesome. Yeah. Send me their information. I'd be happy about that. Another thing I think we were talking about earlier was um, quality of life and kind of observations I've made for people's quality of life. And one I love, that I got to notice, that I
Yeah.
learned in my different jobs I've done, was in senior health care. I mentioned that job to you earlier, I think. When I
Yes.
worked at the second doctor's office, it was a senior healthcare office. And I'm not trying to talk bad about the seniors, but there were some that would call because their elbow hurt, call because their butt hurt, and they're just damn lonely. It's really what I think it is. So, please love on your old people. Not all of us were blessed to get to have them in our lives. I lost my grandma when I was 8. She was my best friend, and I miss her all the time. And that's all I had for a grandparent figure. So
Got
number
it.
one, please love on your old people, or somehow share them with your friends. um, there's a more respectful way to put it.
That's not bad.
And also, what I learned in that job was, um, that I wasn't dying to be in that job forever. And the second thing that I learned to carry over from, being there for your older folks, respecting them and give them your time. The second thing was the quality of life that these folks have when they give back. So there were folks that would come in candy striper outfits or with their Meals on Wheels badge. We could barely get them to come in. They would just pop through for their blood work and run back out. The other folks would be standing in the lobby in a line because their elbow hurt, their butt was hurting.
Hmm.
This was funny. This doesn't seem right. And poor things probably just wanted attention and or wanted um, something to do. But the ones that volunteered, like they had that sense of purpose we talked about earlier.
Yes.
So they were a little less focused on themselves and they were more able to just enjoy life with that giving back process.
That's great. And that makes a lot of sense. Um, it seems like at any level, if you're participating more, you enjoy it more. If you're in school and you're in activities, you enjoy school more, and on and on and on. That is a great point. That's really good.
Yeah, that the community, I mean, giving back to the community and being involved in the community and loving what you do, to go back to what you were talking about as you advise kids. There's no reason to settle for a place that you don't like, but if for some reason you absolutely have to, you could turn your attitude around about it. And I still work on it. I could still be better at it sometimes,
Yeah.
but you could have a job of, I want to think of a job that would seem really, really unpleasant while not insulting people that have to do that job.
Right.
You could have a job shoveling poop every day, but if you had the right attitude about it, you really could find the blessings and make it okay. You could say, gosh, I'm healthy and I'm able to do this. Wow, I love the paycheck that I get, and I'm able to nourish these plants with this cow manure. There's ways to
I
turn
get
your
it.
attitude around no matter what circumstance you're in at this very moment. You could turn your attitude around and dig up those blessings. Not to say you don't change your circumstances, but dig for those blessings, which again helps with quality of life. And people see it, people feel it, and they really appreciate it because it's obvious when you're digging for the blessings. People can see that glow.
I, I normally try to take a phrase that the guest has said and make that the subtitle of the episode. When you said dig for those blessings, I think that's the one we're going to use.
Oh, I like it. I like it. And it's a good reminder for me. I'm not trying to pretend I'm perfect.
All
I
right.
come home edgy
Right.
sometimes too.
I'm still waiting for my first perfect guest, so I get that, or interviewer, so I get it.
Yes, yes.